Module 9, Hospitality at Work. Some labor code provisions concerning hours of work, rest, periods, holiday pay, leaves, and service charges. Article number 83. Normal hours of work. The normal hours of workers should not exceed 8 hours a day. Article 84. Hours worked. Hours worked should include at all times during which an employee is required to be on duty or to be at prescribed workplace, and at all times during which an employee is suffered or permitted to work. Rest periods of short duration during working hours shall be counted as hours worked.
Article 85 of the Labor Code. It pertains to the right to rest period for employees, especially addressing meal breaks. Example for their meal period, every employer is required to give their employees a meal break for at least 1 hour for regular meals. These meal periods or meal breaks is not considered part of their working hours unless the nature of their work requires the employee to remain at their place of work during their meal periods or meal break. So if that's the case, the meal period or meal break should be counted as their work time and compensated accordingly.
Article 86. Night Shift Differential. This policy states that every employee who works during the night between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. must receive an additional payment. This payment is at least 10% more than their regular wage for every hour worked during this time. This differential is important because it acknowledges the challenges of working night shifts, such as disrupted sleep patterns and lifestyle changes. Ultimately, it helps ensure that employees are fairly compensated for their time, effort when working during these desirable hours. Article 87. Covers overtime worked. According to this policy, if an employee works more than 8 hours in a day, they are entitled to additional compensation for that extra time, especially they receive their regular wage plus at least 25% on top of that for every hour of overtime. This rule is essential because it ensures employees are fairly compensated for their extra effort and time, promoting a balance between work and personal life. Article 96. Article 96, which addresses service charges in hotels, restaurants, and in tourism and hospitality industry. According to this policy, 85% of the total service charges collected must be distributed among all covered employees, while 15% is allocated to the management. The employees' share is divided equally among them, ensuring that everyone benefits fairly from the service charges collected. This policy aims to promote equity and recognition for the hard work of service staffs.
Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. Section 1. Title: This act should be known as the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995.
Section 2 of the Anti-Sexual Harassment Laws says that bosses and schools must make sure there is no sexual harassment. It explains that sexual harassment includes things like asking for sexual favors or saying or doing things in a sexual way. The law wants everyone to feel safe and respected at school or work without being scared. It tells schools and workplaces to stop sexual harassment and keep people safe.
Section 3. Work education or training related sexual harassment. Defined work education or training related sexual harassment is committed by an employer, employee, manager, supervisor, agent of the employee, teacher, instructor, professor, coach, trainer, or any other person who having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another in a work. A training or education environment demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether the demand, request, or requirement for submission is accepted by the object of said act. Sexual harassment is any situation in which a person in authority demands sexual favors from another, whether the demands are acceptance or not is irrelevant. The parties concerned with such a situation include employer and employees and educators. An act of sexual harassment related to work, education, or training is committed by an employer, employee, manager, supervisor, agent of the employee, teacher, instruction, professor, coach, trainer, or any other person who having authority in place or moral ascendancy over another in a work or training or education environment demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, whether such demands, requests, or requirement for submission is acceded to by the object of via act.
In a work-related or employment environment, sexual harassment is committed when, number 1, the sexual favor is made as a condition in the hiring or in the employment, re-employment, or continuing employment of said individual, or in granting said individual favorable compensation, terms of conditions, promotions, or privileges, or the refusal to grant the sexual favor result in limiting, segregating, or classifying the employee, which is in any way discriminate, deprive, or diminish employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affect said employee.
The above acts would impair the employee's rights or privileges under existing labor, or the above acts would result in an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for the employee. In the case of a work-related environment, the committee shall be composed of at least one representative each from the management, the union if any, the employees from the supervisory rank, and from the rank and file employees. In the educational or training institution, the committee shall be composed of at least one representative from the administration, the trainers, instructors, professors or coaches, and students or trainees as the case may be. The employer or head of office, educational or training institution shall disseminate or post a copy of this act for the information of all the concerned.
Section 5. The Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995 aims to protect individuals, particularly students, against sexual harassment in educational and training institutions. The employer or head of office, as well as educational or training institution, will be held liable for damages resulting from acts of sexual harassment if they are told by offended party of the occurrence of such action but no action is taken. The employer or head of office is responsible to providing a safe and healthy environment for their employees, students, and trainees. Sa Section 5, base sa aking pagkakaintindi, ang mga manager or nakakataas ang mananagot kapag may nangyaring sexual harassment. Tapos, parang isinasa walang bahala lang nila kahit na may nagsumbong sa kanila. Section 6. Independent action for damages. Nothing in this act shall preclude the victim of work, education, or training-related sexual harassment from instituting a separate and independent action for damages and other affirmative relief. And generally, an independent action for damages allow as a party to seek compensation for losses resulting from another party wrongful conduct separate from another legal claims. Sa Section 6, base sa aking pagkakaintindi, kapag nagkaroon ng sexual harassment tapos gusto ng biktima na ipakulong ang suspect or yung nang haras sa kanya, hindi natin to pwedeng pigilan. May karapatan itong ipakulong kapag walang ginagawa ang ating manager or yung mas nakakataas sa atin.
Section 7. Penalties. If a person does something illegal, their violation is imprisonment for 1 month or more than 6 months, or a fine of 10,000 or more than 20,000 pesos. And it also possible that his fine will be the same as what will be the decision of the court. Section 8. Separability Clause. A separability clause is a legal provision that states that if any part of contract or law is found to be invalid or unenforceable, the remaining parts of the contract or law will be valid and enforceable.
Section 9. Repealing Clause. All laws, decrees, and orders inconsistent with this act are hereby repealed. In simple meaning, this clause cancels any previous laws that conflict with the new law. Section 10. Effectivity Clause. This act shall take effect 15 days after its publication in the official gazette. In simple meaning, this clause states when the new law will start being enforced, usually after a set period.